Before we begin today, I have to warn you. While I intend on being at least a little family-friendly with this series, this story isn't exactly child-appropriate. This story is a sort of noir murder mystery, and as such, it gets pretty gruesome right off the bat, so consider yourself warned. Okay, with that out of the way, welcome to Dungeons and Drawgans. Today's topic, as voted on by Twitter poll, is the Umbra-Stone assassin. Ludevic D'Artorias and his partner Zev were investigators for a sort of magic high council. Their job was to use their magical knowledge and combat expertise to solve some of the world's strangest murder cases. Zev was a tiefling alchemist with a sort of Jekyll and Hyde persona. He was an intellectual out of combat, but became a wild, rampaging monster when faced with a fight. Ludevic was a lizard folk with a no-nonsense attitude, a gruff voice, and a minor disdain for his partner. He was quite literally a gator in a vest, who was also an investigator. On this particular day, the two specialists were sent to the moderately sized town of Hansen to investigate the murder of one Isaac Beauregard, a member of one of three wealthy merchant families who'd been killed while enjoying a night of fun in a local brothel called the Grey Swallow. The group arrived and made contact with the guard captain, who was overseeing the crime scene. As they stepped into the room, they found the bedsheets thrown to the floor. Isaac lay in a pool of blood, chest slashed open by what appeared to be a jagged blade, and his companion for the evening was pinned to the wall, a large metal needle through her throat holding her there. The room had no windows, and only one door. Zev took a look around the room, and discovered a strange burn mark on the nightstand, like a flare spreading out in a circle from something that had covered the spot. At first, they thought it was from a lamp falling over, but Ludevic had a feeling that this burn was no accident, perhaps a calling card. As they left the room, they encountered Isaac's bodyguard, Devin. Devin told them he'd seen a suspicious figure leaving the next room over in a hurry. Now, deciding to work together, Zev, Ludevic, and Devin checked the room next door. The room seemed normal, almost entirely untouched, but Ludevic, with his insane skills of perception, discovered a mark on the wall between the two rooms, which he recognized from his vast experience in the field. This was the distinctive outline of an insistent door knocker, a device which could create a magical doorway on any flat surface. So, this is how he had done it. The killer had moved to the next room over from this one. Ludevic and Zev decided to question the man running this establishment, a shifty-looking elf who seemed resistant to their questions. He made clear that many of their patrons had used aliases, and would therefore be difficult to identify. In order to speak with the lady who had been assigned to that room for the night, they would need to hire her services. Zev put down the gold to speak with the young courtesan, Bambi, who informed them she was quite familiar with the man by his alias. He was a regular, Cassius Carteria, but he had been gone before she arrived to the room that night. With that, the party had their first suspect. House Carteria was one of the other wealthy families within the town, so the three went to go speak with him. Of course, by now it was late, and no one would answer the door, so they had a bit of time to kill. Zev attempted to make back his spent gold by doing a street performance. He used his alchemy to improve it by breathing fire. Natural 1. Zev had gathered a fair crowd with his performance, but as he wowed them by breathing fire into the air, the flames caught a banner. The guards began to form around him, and things weren't looking good. His partner just shrugged and walked off.
If he dies, he dies.
Devin created distraction, and Zev fled the scene and rejoined his compatriots to rent a room for the night, but not before the guards got a decent look at him. The next morning, Devin, Ludevic, and Zev made their way to House Carteria. They were let in by a rather sheepish old butler, who brought them to an office to speak with Christoph Carteria, the head of the family.
"I told you not to let anyone in here!"
Christoph shouted at his terrified servant.
"I'm sorry, sir. They said they were magic high council investigators."
Christoph was somewhat drunk and irritable, but through some bit of questioning he revealed that he didn't know where Cassius was, but that he had been in the midst of negotiating a deal with Isaac Beauregard prior to the man's murder. The discussions had been about an exclusivity deal. You see, House Carteria was in the business of importing and exporting products from the town, while Beauregard and Finsley, the other two wealthy families, were competing merchants within the town. This deal would ensure that Beauregard had a monopoly on most everything, and would edge the Finsley family out entirely. Collectively, the party decided it was time to have a word with the head of the Finsley estate. They found themselves greeted by a tall, pale-skinned woman, who introduced herself as Letheria Finsley, wife of the current family head, Francis. A short word with him revealed that he was not the one in charge here. Letheria herself kept the books and made the deals. Apologizing for the misunderstanding, they were led to her office. The house was very elegantly decorated in dark red furnishings, and her curtains were closed to let little light in. Ludevic questioned her with regards to their relationship with the D'Artorias family and awareness of the proposed exclusivity deal. She claimed to have no knowledge of it, but Ludevic had seen several indicators. She was lying. Upon asking to see her ledgers, she declined and kicked them out. Ludevic was pretty certain they'd found the person responsible, but they didn't have any proof, and they couldn't see her ledgers without permission of the guard captain. So they went to ask for a warrant. While they were there, a couple of the guards recognized Zev. There was a bit of a conflict, but it was resolved because these were Magic High Council investigators after all, and they were let off easily. Once in the guard captain's office, they asked about the warrant.
If you guys are wrong, and we find nothing, I'm ruined.
But Ludevic was certain she was hiding something. Reluctantly, they were given a warrant and a small escort the next day to ensure that Letheria delivered. The ledger showed several discrepancies. She'd been spending money on something expensive, listed as tapestries and furnishings, and although her house was lavishly decorated, Devon was able to appraise the things she'd claimed the money had been spent on for much less than what she'd been spending. It was at this point Letheria was cornered, and she was ready to make a deal. Ludevic asked the other officers to clear the room so they could speak in private.
I think it's clear you have me figured out, but there is a much bigger issue here, so perhaps we can make a deal.
What Letheria offered was the name of the assassin and how to find him. In return, they had to leave her out of this and let her off scot-free. To ensure that they could not break their deal, she had her lawyer, a strange extraplanar being, draw up a magical contract, which stated that if they didn't uphold their end of the bargain, Ludevic, Zev, and Devon would be required to serve Letheria for the rest of their lives. After a fair amount of deliberation, they agreed, and the deal was made.
The man you're looking for is named Edward Eisenborough, and he works for the secret underground guild here in town. They go by the name Umbra-Stone, she told them. She explained to them that her family had long been leveraging their black market connections, and told them where to find the entrance to the Umbra-Stone's network of underground tunnels. That night, the party made their way down, into the depths below the city, in search of the so-called Umbra-Stone Guild. As they entered a wide chamber, a dirty beggar-like cloaked figure stood at the edge of their vision. He asked why they were there.
We were here on behalf of Madame Finsley, and we were looking to contract your services again,
Ludevic said. The figure confirmed their suspicions and revealed himself as the assassin, stepping forward into the light as his form magically shifted into that of a thin, dark-haired elf in a red cloak, frayed on the ends and bearing several long needles at its edge. Beneath his cloak, Ludevic noticed he was concealing a crossbow and an elven curved blade.
Do you think me a fool? I know exactly who you are, and what you're doing.
Ludevic charged blindly towards the man, and the fight began. That's all for today. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to see more, subscribe and ring the bell to be notified. All comments and criticism are appreciated, and I've got pretty thick skin, so if you don't like this video, go ahead and tell me. But be sure to share this video with your friends so they can tell me too.